Hey all, your OS reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at the MelGeek Made68 Air. It's in the same family as the regular Made68 that we checked out a couple of months back. That uses magnetic switches, so you're able to customize the activation point. For instance, if you want to press all the way down, or you can choose to press more lightly to activate that key based on your preferences. So the original was pretty stylish and well-performing, but now the Air version is even slimmer and lighter. In fact, the switches are now only 2.3 millimeters deep and weighs in around 630 grams for the entire keyboard, making it the first low-profile magnetic switch keyboard that I've taken a look at on this channel. It retains a similar aesthetic though, with 68 keys, a compact layout, and also a lightbox functionality up top that will softly glow as another interesting design touch. Packaging is quite playful. We have a sticker here from MelGeek, which is in the shape of a bee. Additional accessories include a USB Type-C to Type-A cable, which is braided, as well as a keycap puller if you want to replace them. In fact, there's a couple of additional spare keycaps with these retro pixelated fonts reminiscent of a Nothing device. There's also a playful bee logo that you can use to replace the existing escape key. A few other quick points. The keyboard comes in two color versions. There is a pink version as well as the purple that you can find here. Both are pretty eye-catching. Now keep in mind that the Made68 Air, to reach that slim profile, is a fully wired keyboard, so it unfortunately doesn't have a Bluetooth or a wireless nano receiver mode. I guess if you are using this as a gaming keyboard though, and you're trying to have the fastest responsiveness, the lowest latency, you would probably be using it in the wired connection anyways to achieve the 8000 Hz polling rate. However, since this keyboard is so slim and lightweight, really compact, I think it would have been nice to have an optional Bluetooth mode if you wanted to carry it with you when on the go. Here's also a quick comparison chart between, again, the regular Made68 or Pro as well as the Air versions. Difference is just in the key travel. Since it is a magnetic switch keyboard, you're able to customize it, again, in terms of how much you want to press down for it to be recognized. At the minimum, it has 0.1 millimeters, but at the deepest, again, the regular key switches are 3.5 millimeters, versus here on the Air version, it's going to be 2.8 millimeters. Now, a closer look at the build quality and design, I have to say I am a pretty big fan of the way this keyboard looks. The sharp angular corners are quite sleek, and the main keyboard deck is crafted out of aluminum alloy, so it has a nice density to it. It doesn't bend or flex at all, feeling very solid. Definitely looks quite distinctive, with a wedge here on the bottom that serves as a way to elevate the keyboard a little bit higher for ergonomics, and a taller plastic cube here, which is the light box. So turning it around, you'll find the Type-C port. Then on the back, it has almost a Lego-inspired design with all these grids running across it, as well as some kickstands that you can pop up for an even more elevated angle. I like the reoccurring accents here of either purple or pink running across the entire look. Here's a size comparison next to the original Made68/68 Pro. So the dimensions up front are similar. It's really just the thickness, which is going to be significantly slimmer on the Air version, as you can tell there, almost 2 times so, helping create a fairly stunning profile look. That being said, on that prior model, there were a few more motifs on the metal plating, including water, fire, wind, earth, but on this model, it seems like we have just a more clean metal trim instead. Likewise, with the lightbox, the original had those reoccurring motifs, which are no longer present on the slimmer version. That being said, the regular/Pro model actually didn't have any additional kickstands that you could use to prop it up at a more elevated typing angle. So, somewhat surprisingly, the even slimmer Air model actually adds this functionality. I think from a design perspective, it might be one of my favorite looking and feeling ultra slim mechanical keyboards since the Newfie Air 75 that we reviewed a while back. And this was previously one of my favorite keyboards I've been actually daily driving because of just how much I like the way it looks and feels, despite the slim profile. Very clean. This is of course a 75% layout compared to the even more compact 68%. But I would say the 68 Air kind of matches the overall fit and finish, as well as having a really striking design of its own for it to stand out, just like the Newfie model that I like so much as well. The biggest differences would be the Newfie is still using traditional mechanical key switches, which don't have adjustable activation points found on the magnetic switches, which are a little bit newer and getting more popular these days. The second difference is that the Newfie actually did have a built-in battery, so it could be used in a detached, wireless mode if you are on the go. So if they could fit that into the frame, then again, I do think despite the super slim profile, perhaps if they added a battery pack inside of the trapezoid here, or even made it a touch thicker, that would have been neat to find, perhaps in another revision down the line. Still, I am in love with just how clean and minimalistic this keyboard looks. Also going ahead and pulling off one of the keycaps, you can see that this is the magnetic switch underneath. The keycaps you're able to replace, remove them for cleaning if desired. And the keyboard is plug and play. If you don't want to customize macro controls, it doesn't require the software or driver, and works with, again, any Windows, Mac OS, Linux computer, Chrome OS, Android devices, even iPads without any problems. And you also see some notification lights down below here on the left-hand edge of the keyboard as well, for commands including the uppercase, lowercase, and that second LED will show the in-key rollover status, as well as the third LED actually can change into 3 colors, red, green, or blue, based on 3 configurations that you can assign to the keyboard. For instance, once you've set that up using the software, you might have one profile dedicated for Photoshop, photo editing, quick commands, versus another one might be the gaming mode, versus another one might be typing out essays and documents. And you can adjust those profiles using a switch located on the very top near the Type-C port. So for instance, I can also swap into another mode that I set up earlier, which uses these candy-colored animations instead, and also the lightbox also can change into other colorways as well. So this might be a more playful, maybe gaming profile versus the work profile that we saw there from before. So pretty customizable, and you can, again, easily swipe back and forth to access those. Now, maybe only one slight downside of having this pixel art inspired keycap design is it's technically replacing perhaps a more practical print of it saying Control, Windows, Alt, Shift, so on and so forth. Instead, they're all using icons, as you can tell there. So it may take a little bit of acclimation to get used to if you aren't a touch typist at first, especially for Control and Alt, but once you master it, it's not that bad, I would say. Speaking of, let's tap on the function key here and toggle through some of the different lighting effects. The Q can actually turn the lightbox mode here on or off, whereas for the backlight underneath the keyboard, you can actually tap on the Z key instead to turn it on or off. So right now it is going to be on versus completely off there. One thing I will say is the keycaps here, to make them a little bit more wear resistant, don't seem to be glowing through, so it's not going to fully shine through in a completely dark space, as you can tell here. If they could have made the keycaps shine through, that might have been even better, but it is what it is. A couple of other quick commands include tapping on function and then C to loop through different colors. So right now it's going to be red, turning into single shades such as blue, green, yellow, before then cycling through again. And we're also able to tap on the V key here to increase the brightness. So this is the maximum brightness that the backlight is capable of displaying. Looking quite decent, I would say. Alternatively, if you tap on the B key, you can dim the backlight as well by a couple of stops. That is a little bit different compared to the majority of other mechanical keyboards I've seen that have used the function, arrow, up and down keys instead. Now, tapping on function and X key also goes through a couple of other animation patterns, including a kind of quickly oscillating light that's just flashing or strobing there. Another one here going into a ripple effect that will go from the left over to the right, as you can tell there, dancing along. Once more here into a reactive mode based on as you're typing, it will then dance outwards in sprints. And of course, you can change the color in all of these animations. If you don't want the white color, you can change this into yellow, blue, using the same commands that we saw there from earlier. But the next one here is going to be another reactive one, but it will slowly fade after a couple of seconds. Next one is another random candy-colored mode, and then it will loop into a few more gradient effects before settling onto single colors that we saw there from the beginning. So those are all the different animation effects that you have on the keyboard. There isn't a built-in microphone, by the way, which might be a plus for security reasons, but you don't have a music equalizer mode that can react to external sound. Moving into a quick demo of what the keyboard sounds like as we do a typing test. So takeaway is I actually really like the way that it sounds as well as feels. I didn't feel like I was actually missing too much in terms of depth of travel versus even the original / Pro model either. It still felt very satisfying and had a sufficiently thocky sound, including several layers of silicone and foam to ensure a good stabilization. It's a pretty nice and consistent feeling as well as sounding keyboard. Not too loud either, so if you're using it in a slightly more shared space, it shouldn't be too distracting. It's just missing some of these shortcuts, including a dedicated numpad, as well as a dedicated function row. Instead, F1 through F9 can be accessed by tapping on function and then the 1 through 9 instead. So you have to use a few more combinations to trigger several of those commands. But again, when it comes to the core typing experience, letters, for documents or essays, it still feels very satisfying. Taking a quick look at the Hive software, impressively there's a web version of the app now available as well. If you don't want to download the application locally, you can just visit hive.melgeek.com, and the web browser here will recognize if a keyboard has been connected, such as the Air 68 here. So if we tap on Connect, so this web app version doesn't take up any physical space on your computer's memory. You can tap inside to, again, trigger different controls, inclusive of various shortcut commands, as well as media controls, shortcuts for calculator functions that you can bring back, and even program mouse click commands on specific keys as well if desired. And once satisfied, you're able to save it onto the keyboard. You can choose between the default layout, the typing profile, or a rapid profile, which are the three modes that we talked about earlier. So we can easily use the slider here to adjust between those three different layouts and modes. When it comes to lighting effects over here, again, you're able to change a specific color as well as brightness for each individual key, which is pretty cool if you want it to be completely customized based on your liking, as well as the box light on the very top. So here we can see that changing in real time. Not bad in terms of general responsiveness. Here's the white color, but still is a little bit violet tinted because of the acrylic plastic on top is a kind of shade of purple. But nonetheless, you're able to play around with some of these lighting effects. So again, special shortcuts, macro commands, and even snap tap is available on this keyboard as well. This was a technology that was originally pioneered by Razer. So if you are pressing down different keys simultaneously while gaming, it will recognize the most current key that you want to click on without having to release the previous keys. For example, if you're trying to move around in a game and your figure is running, you don't have to completely lift on the other arrow keys for it to recognize that you want to change the direction that the character is moving in. And last but not least, you have the adjustable actuation parameters in terms of if you want the keys to be ultra sensitive, we can select on specific keys or drag over for multiple keys and then select the activation point to be as little as 0.1 millimeters, or if you want it to be deeper and slightly less sensitive, you have to press all the way down 2.8 millimeters to trigger that instead. And that might be something that you can change from case to case. For instance, if you are gaming, you may want to lower the activation point so you can press more lightly and quickly to trigger that command, versus if you're typing and you want more precision, you may want to increase it instead. Looks like there's also a calibration mode here as well that tells you at the moment what is the current weight all of the key switches magnetically are recognizing. Now there's also a tool tab that you can use to quickly test out the keyboard in terms of are all the keys functional or not, as well as how quickly they're being registered, as you can tell here in real time. Use this to see if there's any dead keys on your keyboard, as well as how responsive it currently is. So there we have it. That's been our look at the MelGeek Made68 Air, and I have to say it's probably my favorite looking ultra slim mechanical keyboard that I've reviewed yet. I just love the way this thing looks, as well as the typing experience feels surprisingly solid despite the more shallow key switches. It still produces a thoughtful, clean sound. The industrial build and striking looks also just visually sets this keyboard apart. Again, really the only thing that I would have liked them to add, if possible, would have been a built-in battery for an optional wireless mode. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times now, but because it is a really lightweight and compact keyboard, I do think it would have been the cherry on top, metaphorically speaking. You can check out more details if interested in the links down below. That has been the beautifully crafted and excellent typing experience overall, MelGeek Made68 Air.